As we dive into 12.3, we're discussing early payoff of loans. In these objectives, we're using the 5-step method, using the United States rule. Finding the simple interest, remember our formula, interest equals PRT. Subtract the interest from the amount of the payment, add any difference is used to reduce the principal. Treat additional partial payments in the same way and always find the interest on only the unpaid balance after the last partial payment. Finally, the remaining principal plus interest on this unpaid principal is then due on the due date of the loan. The formula is demonstrated for you here for each step using the interest formula, applying the amount of principal, new principal, and then again, if there's no additional payments, you move on to 5. These will be demonstrated for you in just a moment. An additional example is provided for you, and a table here is an example of date payment made, the amount of the payment, what's applied to interest, what's applied to principal, and the remaining balance through the payoff. We have the rule of 78 when prepaying a loan. It's demonstrated for you here. We also have how to find unearned interest. This formula here, U represents unearned interest. F is the finance charge, N is the number of payments remaining, and P is the original number of payments. This formula here can be used to identify the amount of the unearned interest. As these examples are provided for you, they may be helpful. Let's do some examples now. This is an example of finding the paid balance due on the maturity date of the following notes. We have the principal, the interest, the time and days, the partial payments. We are calculating the balance due and the total interest paid. This is demonstrated for you here. Interest, as always, principal times interest times time. This is in days, and we're using the 360 ordinary interest calculation. This provides us with 115.69. If we take that 115.69 and we subtract it from the $1,800 of partial payments, this will give us the value of $1,684.31. This value, less our principal, will then give us the balance due. This balance due can be used to calculate, again, the interest due at the end of a 150-day note. Principal times interest times time. This value added to that debt after first payment will give us the balance due. Balance due will go here under balance due. Interest paid will be the two interest payments of the $115.69 and the $191.62 calculated previously. That will give us our total interest paid. 2 more examples are provided for you here. In each of the following loans is paid in full before the maturity date, find the amount of unearned interest, and for this we use the rule of 78. So here's my formula. Finance charge, number of payments, remaining number of payments in full is provided for you. By calculating and using our unearned interest formula, we can calculate the following. 8, 9, and 10 are demonstrated for you here. With word problems, extracting the key information is again the first step. In this, we're identifying the interest due and the total amount due using the interest formula as discussed earlier. In this word problem, we're repeating those steps. Identifying the number of days, because remember, it's principal times rate times time. This is an example of identifying the unearned interest and the amount necessary to pay the loan in full. I've demonstrated it for you here. This is a word problem, very similar to what you'll see in my lab. Identifying the finance charge, the unearned interest, and the amount necessary to pay the loan in full. Let's move on to personal property loans.